Hey guys, tonight we're diving into how did Victorian women relieve themselves in those giant dresses. Forget everything Hollywood told you, this is the real story, and trust me, you probably wouldn't last a day. So before you get too comfortable, hit that like button if you enjoy this kind of deep dive, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, dim the lights, maybe grab a snack, and let's jump in. You wake up in 1857, the air smells like soot and coal smoke, and something faintly human. Your corset is already singed so tight your lungs are sending out Morse code. You tried to sit up, but remember, right, you're basically swaddled in 15 pounds of fabric, whalebone, and a steel hoop skirt the size of a satellite dish. You stumble toward the mirror. Your hair is done just so, your collar is pinned, and your layers, dear God, your layers. You're wearing stockings, bloomers, a chemise, a petticoat, a crinoline cage, another petticoat, a bodice, a skirt, a bustle pad, and probably an apron for good measure. And now, surprise your bladders, full. So, what now? Because here's the thing. Toilets, as we know them, are decades away from becoming mainstream. Plumbing, rare privacy, hilariously optional, and you're a walking piece of architecture in a gown wide enough to block a hallway. Let's talk logistics. There were no dainty porcelain thrones in most Victorian homes. What you had instead were chamber pots, those delightful, echoey little bowls that lived under the bed like judgmental pet turtles. So you, dear viewer, had a few options. Option 1, you find a quiet corner, lift about 4 layers of skirt, and squat over a pot with the delicacy of a cat burglar. Option 2, you're at a party. You excuse yourself and navigate your giant silk death trap down a narrow hallway to a powder room where there's no sink, no mirror, just a glorified bucket with a lid. Now, here's where it gets fun. You're not wearing underwear the way we think of it today. Victorian bloomers. Totally open crotch. That's right, these women were just airing out for convenience. Which, to be fair, makes more sense when you're peeing blindfolded under a hoop skirt while balancing over a pot. But wait, what if you're outside? Let's say you're shopping in town, or out on a long carriage ride. What then? Well, if you were wealthy, your maid might carry a porta potty disguised as a hat box. Yes, that was a thing. It was called a burdaloo, named after a priest, ironically. Shaped like a gravy boat, it let women squat discreetly, often while still sitting down. Imagine just peeing in a teacup with your legs crossed at high tea, while politely discussing embroidery. Elegance defined. If you were not wealthy, you held it, you prayed for an alley, or you joined the growing ranks of women demanding access to public restrooms, which, spoiler alert, became a whole movement. But more on that another time. You ever wonder how they handled their business during travel across long roads with no rest stops, or how all that fabric affected their ... aim? Well, imagine trying to relieve yourself with no seat, no light, and a strong breeze coming in through the carriage window. So you're in a horse-drawn carriage, bouncing along cobblestone roads. Your kidneys are tapping out Morse code. You politely smile at your chaperone while mentally calculating the distance to the next stop, which, surprise, doesn't have toilets, or a door, or dignity. This is where the burdaloo becomes a secret weapon. With a maid shielding you with a shawl, and your skirt strategically poofed around you like a privacy tent, you might be able to relieve yourself without anyone noticing. Might. The maid, she's seen things. She's practically a special ops agent of Victorian hygiene. She knows when to hand you the burdaloo, when to cough for cover, and when to disappear like a ninja until you're done. And let's not forget, There's no toilet paper. You've got rag cloths, or if you're lucky, squares of newspaper, ever wiped with the London Times. It's more editorial than absorbent. But don't think men had it easier. Victorian trousers didn't come with zippers either. And public urinals pissoirs weren't exactly discreet. Basically, nobody was thriving. But Victorian women, they had to navigate all this while carrying the burden of elegance. Literally, and those dresses. They weren't just fashion statements. They were smokescreens. Portable camouflage for doing what had to be done. You might think, well, at least once they're home, it gets better. Hey, it's midnight. You're back in your room. The candles are low. The corset is off. Your body's tenderized like a steak, and all you want is sleep. But no, nature calls. You could walk through an unlit, creaky hallway, past 3 sleeping relatives, a barking dog, and the ghost of your great-aunt Mildred, just to reach the outhouse in the yard. Or you could reach under your bed, grab the good old chamber pot, and pray your aim's still decent in the dark. Some women did it sitting sideways on the bed, others crouched. Some just stood and hoped for the best. And every single one of them had the same dread. Who's cleaning this in the morning? Spoiler, usually the maid, but sometimes you. And if you thought chamber pots were gross, just wait until we talk about what happened to all the waste. Where did it go? How did it smell? What did London streets look like after a hot afternoon in July? And what happens when corsets, menstruation, and digestion all decide to throw a surprise party at once? You've survived the daytime dilemma. You've outwitted the Burdaloo. You've dodged a midnight trip to the outhouse. But now it's a new day, and your body has a different agenda. Let's talk about periods. Yeah, Victorian women bled too. And no, there were no pads with wings, no tampons, no menstrual cups in pastel colors promising freedom. Instead, you've got rags, literally, soft cloth squares washed and reused. And because no one's talking openly about menstruation, Victorian modesty, remember, you're expected to deal with it discreetly, like you're committing a crime. You're still wearing layers. You're still tightly laced into a corset. And now, you're praying no red stain seeps through 6 petticoats and onto someone's fainting couch. Oh, and cramps. Tough it out. Doctors might diagnose you with female hysteria and prescribe, get this, a vibrating contraption the size of a sewing machine, or a spa day involving ice baths and gentle electroshock. Medicine was ... creative. Now imagine you're wearing a corset that compresses your stomach, squeezes your intestines, and gently nudges your organs into retirement. What happens when you have to go, you know, the other kind? Exactly. Constipation was basically a national pastime. Victorian women wrote letters complaining of irregularities, and doctors offered tonics, prunes, or turpentine enemas, which, yes, is as horrifying as it sounds. You couldn't just run to the loo mid-conversation. Etiquette dictated you act like your body didn't do any of this. That's why so many women fainted. They weren't delicate flowers. They were just ... suffocating in steel cages while full of suppressed gas. So when you did finally get relief, in private, in the dark, crouched over a pot, that wasn't shame, that was triumph. And just when you thought the worst was over, remember the chamber pots. Eventually, they have to be emptied. Someone hauls that sloshing bowl down the hallway, past fine rugs and porcelain vases, to toss it into a slop bucket or straight out the window. Yup, out the window. And if you think that's bad, just wait until you learn what time of day was acceptable for launching your waste into the streets. and what people yelled before they did it. It's early morning in Victorian London. You're walking to the market, parasol in one hand, dignity in the other. Suddenly, splash, from a second-story window, someone yells, "Goody Lou!" That's your 1800s warning cry for incoming bodily fluids. Brace yourself. And then it rains, not water, not tea, not anything you want on your boots. See, before indoor plumbing, people disposed of waste by literally dumping it out the window. Chamber pots, baby diapers, even the occasional bucket from a bar fight aftermath right into the street. If you were lucky, it missed you. If you weren't, well, that's why ladies carried parasols and men wore tall boots. And the smell. Imagine hot horse manure, rotting cabbage, urine-soaked cobblestones, and body odor brewed in wool coats, all mixed under the gentle warmth of a summer sun. Victorian streets weren't just unsanitary. They were biohazard musicals with every step. So, how did Victorian women relieve themselves in those giant dresses, with grit, grace, and a solid squat game? They managed their bodily functions while maintaining appearances, politeness, and several layers of fabric, and often did it while revolutionizing ideas about privacy, hygiene, and women's autonomy. These women weren't just dainty teacup holders. They were battle-hardened bladder warriors. So next time you're stuck in traffic needing to pee, or complaining about a public toilet that doesn't have a hook for your bag, just remember, at least you're not holding a chamber pot in one hand and your skirts in the other, trying not to trip over a corset while yelling "Goody Lou." And yet, there's still one more layer we haven't peeled back. What about bathing? How did they wash? What did hygiene actually mean back then? And what unholy inventions did they use instead of deodorant? You might want to sit down for this, because if you thought chamber pots were wild. So here we are, after corsets, chamber pots, carriages, burdaloos, and airborne waste at the end of the trail. Or, perhaps more accurately, the drain. The Victorian woman's bathroom routine wasn't a routine, it was a strategy. A daily dance of fabric, modesty, and determination. Every bodily need was an obstacle course wrapped in lace, and yet, somehow, they managed. They lived, they laughed, quietly, in public, and they peed in silence beneath skirts big enough to hide a small dog. They walked the tightrope of society's expectations with a bladder full of tea and not a public toilet in sight. But don't let the petticoats fool you. These women were survivors, silent rebels, armed with chamber pots and iron willpower, shaping a world that would one day allow us to complain about paper towel dispensers that don't work. So the next time you're in a cramped stall juggling your bag, coat, and dignity, just know you've got nothing on Victorian women. If you enjoyed this messy little dive into the untold truths of history, hit that like button, subscribe for more offbeat stories, and tell me in the comments, what's the weirdest bathroom situation you've ever been in? Because in the next episode, we're leaving the chamber pot behind and stepping into the tub, or what they called a bath, which might have involved reused water, arsenic soap, and bathing once a month, if that. So, you clean? You ready? Because things are about to get even dirtier. Our next video, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on the woman who ruled an empire while her body was silently betraying her. A queen whose limbs decayed while her power remained absolute. A body rotting in real time while her subjects still bowed and kissed her hand. And after that, we'll meet the Duchess who defied centuries of pressure because she knew her bloodline was a ticking time bomb. You've heard the myths. Now you'll see the real horror hidden behind royal lace and gold leaf. The portraits get darker from here.